Do you feel like everyone hates you? Well, you might be onto something. Welcome to the twisted labyrinth of likability, where the road to being admired is paved with missteps and paradoxes. Ever heard of the Unlikable Paradox? No, it's probably because we just made it up. It's the mind-boggling theory that the harder you try to be likable, the less likable you become. Bizarre, right? So, let's dive into the world of nonsensical equations and mathematical jargon to unveil the secrets of becoming likable. Now, the first step to becoming likable is to understand the likability equation. The likability equation, an intricate work of art that could make Einstein sweat. It's like the Mona Lisa of equations, if Mona Lisa were a mathematical nightmare and Da Vinci was a mad scientist. So, let's dive into this enigma, shall we? First off, we have the B variable. This stands for how many times you blink in a minute. Yes, you heard that right. Your likability is directly proportional to your ability to keep your peepers moisturized. So, blink away, my friends. Now, moving on to the S variable. This one's a doozy. It represents your shoe size. You might be wondering, what in the world does shoe size have to do with likability? Well, that's a question for another day, because honestly, we haven't figured it out yet. Next up, we have the C variable, which stands for the number of cats you own, because nothing says likable like a crazy cat person. Then there's the P variable, which stands for the number of pineapple slices you like on your pizza. Oh, and if you're one of those people who don't like pineapple on pizza, well, let's just say the equation isn't in your favor. We also have the H variable, which represents the number of hats you own. Yes, hats. Because every likable person needs a good hat collection, right? And finally, we have the T variable. This one's for the number of times you've tripped over your own feet in the past week, because nothing screams likable like a good old-fashioned faceplant. Now, put all these variables together, carry the one, divide by 0, and voila. You have your likability equation. It's as easy as pie. Or more accurately, as easy as a Rubik's Cube smothered in butter. So, the key to likability lies in this equation. If you don't understand it, well, that's on you. Next, we have the principle of relative annoyance. Now, this is a principle that's as real as unicorns or free lunches. It's a principle that states quite unequivocally that your level of annoyance is inversely proportional to your likability. Yes, folks, we're diving into the deep end of the nonsense pool where the lifeguards are imaginary and the water is just hot air. Let's dissect this so-called principle, shall we? Picture your annoyance as a giant balloon. The bigger it gets, the more people want to pop it. And when they do, bam! There goes your likability, bursting into 1,000 tiny fragments, much like your dignity at a high school reunion. Now let's add some fake numbers to make it look official. Suppose you are on a scale of annoyance from 1 to 10. If you're a 10, congratulations. You're as likable as a mosquito at a nudist colony. If you're a 1, well, you're practically Mother Teresa. If Mother Teresa were a figment of our collective imagination, which for the purposes of this video, she is. But wait, I hear you cry. What about the inverse proportion? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, in the magical world of made-up mathematics, an inverse proportion means that as one thing increases, the other decreases. So as your annoyance level ascends to the heavens, your likability plummets to the depths of the Mariana Trench, where not even James Cameron can find it. We could even draw a graph with annoyance on the x-axis and likability on the y-axis, but that would require effort and a rudimentary understanding of geometry, and we simply don't have the time or the crayons for that. So there you have it, folks. The principle of relative annoyance in all its glory. A principle as useful as a chocolate teapot and as scientifically valid as a flat earth convention. Remember, the more annoying you are, the less people will like you. It's just math. Now let's talk about the Pythagorean theorem of friendships. You know, Pythagoras, that ancient Greek dude who was obsessed with triangles. Yeah, that guy. Anyway, turns out he had a lot more to say about friendships than he did about geometry. Who knew? So the Pythagorean theorem of friendships goes like this. The length of your friendships, represented by the hypotenuse of our figurative triangle, can be calculated by squaring the number of times you've been annoying. Now, hold on to your hats, because this is where things get really scientific. Let's imagine for a moment that you're annoying. I know, a stretch, but bear with me. Every time you annoy someone, it's like adding another unit to the annoyance side of your friendship triangle. This could be anything from chewing with your mouth open to sending Game of Thrones spoilers. You know who you are. Now, according to Pythagoras, the length of your friendships is equal to the square of your annoying habits. So, if you've been annoying 10 times, you square that to get 100. That's 100 units of solid friendship right there, folks. But wait, there's more. This theorem also states that the more annoying you are, the longer your friendships will last. So if you're really looking to solidify your relationships, consider upping your annoyance game. Maybe start sending your friends unsolicited karaoke videos or start a conversation about politics at Thanksgiving dinner. That should do the trick. And before you ask, yes, this is all completely 100% scientifically accurate. I mean, who are we to argue with Pythagoras? The man invented triangles for crying out loud. So if you want longer friendships, just square your annoying habits. Easy, right? Don't forget, the more annoying you are, the more people will be drawn to your magnetic personality. It's just science, or at least it's the Pythagorean theorem of friendships. And who are we to argue with that? Lastly, we have the scientific method of making friends. Now, making friends is a rigorous process, much like conducting a science experiment. And like any good experiment, it starts with identifying a subject. In this case, a potential friend. Make sure to pick someone who is clearly out of your league, preferably someone who has a restraining order against you. It adds an element of thrill, you see. Next, we move on to formulating a hypothesis. This could be something along the lines of, if I tell them they have nice shoes, they will instantly want to be my friend. It's foolproof, really. Who wouldn't want to be friends with a budding fashion critic? Now we come to the exciting part, conducting experiments. This is where you try out different icebreakers like, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Or is your name Google? Because you have everything I've been searching for. If you're feeling particularly adventurous, you could even go with, do you believe in love at first sight, or should I walk by again? Your creativity is the limit here. Once you've conducted your experiments, it's time to analyze the results. This involves observing their reactions. Did they laugh? Did they run away? Did they call the police? Each of these reactions provides valuable data that you can use to refine your friend-making approach. Lastly, we have the final step, drawing conclusions from your findings. If they laughed, congratulations. You're well on your way to becoming friends. If they ran away, well, maybe you should try a different icebreaker next time. And if they called the police, consider it a win. After all, you've made a new friend in the form of the police officer who's now handling your case. So there you have it, the foolproof scientific method of making friends. What could possibly go wrong? Now that we've covered all the steps, let's recap the terrible advice we've given you. We started off by introducing you to the Unlikable Paradox, a completely nonsensical concept that suggests the more you try to be likable, the more unlikable you become. It's like trying to chase your own tail, but less fun and more socially awkward. Then we moved on to the likability equation, an equation so convoluted and ridiculous it makes quantum physics look like basic addition. We're pretty sure it involves square roots, a couple of imaginary numbers, and maybe a dash of paprika. Following that, we dived into the principle of relative annoyance. This principle claims that your level of annoyance is directly proportional to the square of the distance from the nearest person. Or was it inversely proportional? Either way, it's utter nonsense. We then delved into the Pythagorean theorem of friendships, a theorem that suggests friendship is a right-angled triangle, and you're probably the hypotenuse, because nothing says friendship like geometric shapes, right? And finally, we proposed the scientific method of making friends, which was neither scientific nor a method, but rather a series of random steps involving interpretive dance, Morse code, and a rubber duck. Remember, if everyone still hates you after you've followed these steps, feed them to your reptilian overlords.